The crystalline spires of the Thessalian capital pierced the purple sky like frozen lightning, their surfaces reflecting the light of 3 setting suns. Within the grand chamber of judgment, Princess Naya stood before the council of elders, her iridescent scales dulled by the shame they insisted she should feel. Unlike her people, who drew power directly from the sacred energy crystals that powered their civilization, Naya's body rejected their energy, a defect that made her different, made her less in their eyes. High Elder Vorash's tentacles rippled with barely contained disgust as he delivered the verdict. Princess Naya of House Luminara, you have failed the final trial of ascension. Your inability to commune with the sacred crystals marks you as unworthy of your position and title. Naya lifted her chin, her secondary respiratory gills fluttering with controlled anger. I may not process crystal energy like others, but my mind is sharp, my strategic abilities unmatched. I've developed alternative technologies that could. Silence. Vorash's voice boomed through the chamber. Your alternatives are an insult to our traditions. The royal bloodline must remain pure, capable of wielding the full power of our heritage. The watching nobles murmured their agreement, their bodies glowing with the crystal energy that Naya could never harness. She watched as her own mother, Queen Selenith, turned away, unable to meet her gaze. The betrayal stung worse than any physical pain. You are hereby stripped of your title and sentenced to exile on the outer colony of Helios 9, Vorash continued. Perhaps there, among the lesser species who cannot harness crystal energy, you will find your place. As the guards approached to escort her away, Naya spoke one last time, her voice carrying across the silent chamber. You fear what you don't understand. Your precious crystals are finite, they're failing. My research could save our people, but your pride blinds you to the truth. The guards roughly guided her toward the exit, but she walked with dignity, her head held high. Behind her, the whispers of the court followed like poisoned daggers, defective. Impure. Shame of the Empire. The transport ship that would carry her to exile was small and automated, no Thessalian would lower themselves to accompany a disgraced princess. As the capital city shrank beneath her, Naya pressed her hand against the viewport, watching the only home she'd ever known fade into the distance. The journey to Helios 9 took 3 standard days. Naya spent the time reviewing her research on her personal data tablet, the one piece of technology they'd allowed her to keep. Her work on alternative energy sources and crystal-free technology was groundbreaking, but the elders had dismissed it as heresy. They couldn't see that their dependence on crystal energy was leading them toward extinction. Helios 9 was a harsh world of red deserts and rocky mountains, populated by various species who had no natural ability to harness crystal energy. The Thessalians considered it a backwater, suitable only for mining operations and exile. The ship landed at a small outpost on the planet's northern continent. As Naya stepped out into the alien atmosphere, her adaptive membranes automatically adjusting to the different air composition, she noticed the settlement was far more advanced than she'd expected. Buildings of various architectural styles blended together, creating a vibrant tapestry of cultural exchange. A small group of officials waited nearby, representatives from the colonial administration. None were Thessalian. Their leader, a tall, multi-limbed arachnid, stepped forward. Welcome to Helios 9, Princess Naya, the administrator's translator device conveyed. I am Administrator Crix. We've been instructed to provide you with basic accommodations and ensure you remain within the settlement's boundaries. Naya nodded, appreciating the administrator's direct approach. Thank you. And it's just Naya now. They've made that quite clear. As she followed Crix through the settlement, Naya observed the various species working together, using technology that didn't rely on crystal energy. Their solutions were different, but effective. Perhaps here, among those her people considered inferior, she would finally find the freedom to pursue her research without the weight of tradition holding her back. In her assigned quarters, small but functional, Naya unpacked her few possessions and set up her research equipment. Through her window, she could see the distant crystal mines that had made this colony valuable to her people. The irony wasn't lost on her, exiled for her inability to process crystal energy, yet surrounded by the very substance that had defined her worthlessness in their eyes. That night, as Helios IX's 3 moons cast their pale light across the desert landscape, Naya made her first entry in a new research journal, Day 1 of Exile. They meant this as a punishment, but perhaps it's an opportunity. Here, away from the constraints of tradition, I can finally prove that there's more than one way to power a civilization. They call me defective, but I'll show them that different doesn't mean broken. Commander Marcus Bishop of the Terran Diplomatic Corps wasn't impressed by bureaucracy, especially when it got in the way of progress. Standing in Administrator Crix's office on Helios 9, he found himself facing exactly that kind of obstacle. The Mining Rights Agreement explicitly states that human engineers must be accompanied by Thessalian oversight during any facility inspections, Crix explained, his translator device struggling to convey his apologetic tone. Marcus ran a hand through his graying hair, his weathered face creasing with frustration. The Thessalians haven't sent a representative in 3 months. Our engineers need to assess the structural integrity of the lower tunnels before we can proceed with the new safety protocols. Perhaps I can help, a voice interjected from the doorway. Both turned to see a Thessalian female, her scales a subtle shade of blue-green, lacking the characteristic glow of crystal energy that her species usually displayed. Naya, Crix acknowledged, his appendages twitching nervously. This is a diplomatic matter. And I'm still technically Thessalian, she countered, entering the room. More importantly, I've studied crystal mine engineering extensively. I can provide the oversight you need, Commander Bishop. Marcus studied her with interest. He'd heard rumors about an exiled Thessalian princess, but rumors were common in frontier colonies. You have experience with crystal mining operations? I have experience with proving people wrong about what I'm capable of, Naya replied, meeting his gaze steadily. I also have detailed knowledge of Thessalian mining protocols and engineering standards. Whether the Council likes it or not, I'm the most qualified person on this planet to assist you. A smile tugged at the corner of Marcus's mouth. He recognized the look in her eyes, the determination of someone who'd been underestimated too many times. Administrator Crix, would this satisfy the diplomatic requirements? Crix's appendages waved in a gesture of resignation. Technically, yes. But if the Council objects, then they can send their own representative, Marcus finished. Until then, we work with what we have. Naya, can you be ready to begin inspections tomorrow morning? She nodded, her secondary gills flaring slightly with satisfaction. I'll review the current safety protocols tonight. Where should I meet your team? As they worked out the details, Marcus observed how Naya's quick intelligence and practical suggestions demonstrated expertise that went far beyond theoretical knowledge. Whatever had led to her exile, it clearly hadn't diminished her capabilities. The next morning, as they descended into the crystal mines, Marcus noticed how Naya moved with confident precision despite her inability to process crystal energy. She carried various scanning devices of her own design, explaining that she'd developed them as alternatives to the natural sensing abilities her people possessed. Most Thessalians rely too heavily on their crystal energy sensitivity, she explained, adjusting one of her scanners. They miss subtle structural weaknesses that technology can detect more reliably. Here, look at this reading. Marcus examined the display she indicated. The scanner showed microscopic fractures in what appeared to be a stable crystal formation. This could become a serious problem if left unchecked. Exactly. Traditional Thessalian mining techniques wouldn't detect this until it was too late. But by combining different scanning methods, she manipulated the device, revealing multiple layers of data. We can predict and prevent structural failures before they occur. As they progressed deeper into the mines, Marcus found himself increasingly impressed by Naya's innovative approaches. She didn't just work around her inability to sense crystal energy, she developed superior methods that could benefit all mining operations. During a brief rest period, while his engineers were taking detailed scans of a particularly complex crystal formation, Marcus finally asked the question that had been nagging at him. Why would the Thessalian Council exile someone with your expertise? Naya's expression darkened momentarily. Because expertise isn't enough when you're considered defective by birth. My people believe that our connection to crystal energy defines our worth. I was born unable to process it naturally, so nothing else I could offer would ever make up for that flaw. Marcus frowned. That seems remarkably short-sighted for such an advanced civilization. Advanced technology doesn't guarantee advanced thinking, Naya replied, checking her scanner readings. The Council is so focused on maintaining their traditional power structure that they can't see the crystal energy crisis coming. Their entire civilization depends on a resource that's becoming increasingly unstable, but they refuse to consider alternatives. Is that what your research focuses on? Alternatives to crystal energy? She nodded, her eyes lighting up with passionate intensity. I've developed theoretical models for hybrid systems that could gradually reduce our dependence on crystal energy while maintaining our technological capabilities. But the Council dismissed my findings without even reviewing them. They called it heresy. Marcus was quiet for a moment, processing this information. Finally, he spoke, choosing his words carefully. The Terran Diplomatic Corps has been monitoring the crystal energy situation. Our scientists have detected concerning patterns in crystal stability across multiple mining sites. If your research could help address this. It could, Naya confirmed. But the Council would never accept help from outsiders, especially regarding something so fundamental to their society. A slight smile crossed Marcus's face. They might not have a choice. If these crystal formations are becoming as unstable as our data suggests, they'll need solutions sooner rather than later. And sometimes, the best way to change a society's mind is to prove them wrong so thoroughly they can't ignore it. The research facility on Helios 9 hummed with activity as Naya and Marcus reviewed the latest data from their crystal stability tests. 3 weeks had passed since their initial mine inspection, and what they'd discovered was more alarming than either had anticipated. The degradation rate is accelerating, Naya explained, manipulating the holographic display to show a time-lapse of crystal decay patterns. These formations aren't just becoming unstable, they're breaking down at a molecular level. The energy signature is completely different from anything in historical records. Marcus leaned closer to the display, his expression grave. How long until this affects the Thessalian central systems? Based on these projections, Naya's fingers flew over the controls, calculating. 8 months, maybe less. Once it starts, the cascade effect will be devastating. Every crystal-powered system in the Empire will begin to fail. The implications were staggering. The Thessalian Empire's entire infrastructure, from basic power generation to advanced medical technology, relied on crystal energy. Millions of lives would be at risk. We need to present this evidence to the Council, Marcus said, straightening up. Even they can't ignore data this conclusive. Naya's secondary gills fluttered with skepticism. They ignored my previous warnings. Why would this be different? Because this time, you have proof. And, Marcus added with a slight smile, you have the backing of the Terran Diplomatic Corps. High Elder Vorash may be proud, but he's not stupid. He knows he can't afford to alienate Earth, not with the current political climate. Before Naya could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. Emergency lights pulsed as Administrator Crix's voice echoed through the comm system, alert. Critical failure detected in Mine Shaft 7. All personnel evacuate immediately. Naya's scanners were already providing data. It's happening, a spontaneous crystal destabilization. The energy readings are off the scale. She grabbed her specialized equipment. There are miners down there. Marcus was already moving. How long until total collapse? 10 minutes, maybe less. The traditional evacuation protocols won't work, the crystals are too unstable for Thessalian teleporters. Then we do this the human way. Marcus activated his comm unit. Bishop to emergency response team. Get the mechanical extractors to mine shaft 7 immediately. And someone find me a hard suit. Minutes later, they descended into the mine shaft, Naya's scanners guiding them through the increasingly unstable tunnels. The air crackled with volatile crystal energy, making the Thessalian miners disoriented and weak. Traditional rescue teams would have been useless here, their crystal-based abilities more liability than asset. 3 life signs ahead, Naya called out, her technology cutting through the interference. 2 Thessalians, 1 Andromedan. They're trapped behind a crystal formation that's about to collapse. Marcus maneuvered the mechanical extractor into position. Can we cut through? Not directly, the vibrations would trigger an immediate collapse. Naya studied her readings, mind racing. But if we combine your extractor's capabilities with my resonance disruptor. She quickly attached her device to the machine. This should create a stable passage. We'll have exactly 47 seconds before the whole section comes down. Marcus met her eyes through their protective visors. That's all we need. The rescue was precise, desperate, and successful. As they emerged from the mine shaft, carrying the injured miners to safety, the ground shook with the collapse of the tunnel behind them. The gathered crowd, humans, Thessalians, and various other species, watched in amazement as Naya's quick thinking and Marcus's decisive action saved lives that traditional methods couldn't have reached. Word of the incident spread quickly through official channels. Within days, High Elder Vorash himself arrived on Helios 9, ostensibly to investigate the mine collapse but really to assess the political implications of a defective exile succeeding where pure-blooded Thessalians could not. In the colony's main conference chamber, Naya and Marcus presented their findings. The evidence was irrefutable, crystal energy sources throughout Thessalian space were degrading. Traditional methods of energy processing were accelerating the decay. Without immediate action, the Empire faced catastrophic system failures. Your data is concerning, Vorash admitted reluctantly, his tentacles rippling with discomfort. But the solutions you propose, hybridizing our systems with alternative energy sources, it goes against everything our society is built upon. With respect, High Elder, Marcus interjected, your society will collapse entirely if you don't adapt. Naya's research doesn't just offer a solution to the current crisis, it provides a path forward that could make your civilization stronger than ever. Naya stepped forward, facing her former tormentor with quiet confidence. You exiled me because I couldn't process crystal energy like others. But that very limitation forced me to find different ways, better ways. I don't want to destroy our traditions, I want to save our people. The chamber fell silent as Vorash studied the data again. Finally, he spoke, the council will need to review this in detail. We will require your presence on the capital world, Naya, to explain these findings. He paused, choosing his next words carefully. And, we will need the continued assistance of the Terran Diplomatic Corps to implement any potential changes. It wasn't a full vindication, but it was a start. As the meeting concluded, Naya felt Marcus's hand briefly touch her shoulder in support. They both knew this was just the beginning of a longer struggle, but for the first time since her exile, the future held real hope. The Thessalian capital hadn't changed during Naya's absence, its crystal spires still reached toward the purple sky, its people still glowed with crystal energy. But something had changed in how they looked at her as she walked through the grand halls beside Commander Marcus Bishop. The council chamber was packed with nobles and officials, all gathered to hear the presentation that could reshape their civilization. High Elder Vorash had arranged this session despite opposition from traditionalists, knowing they could no longer ignore the mounting evidence of crisis. The crystal decay has spread to 17 major systems, Naya explained, projecting comprehensive data streams across the chamber's holographic displays. At the current rate, critical infrastructure will begin failing within 6 months. However, we've developed a solution. Marcus stepped forward, adding his voice to the presentation. Working together, we've created a hybrid system that combines traditional crystal energy with alternative power sources. Early tests show it's not only stable but more efficient than pure crystal technology. The chamber erupted in murmurs and protests. One council member, Elder Drixus, rose in objection. This is blasphemy. Our entire society is built upon pure crystal energy. To dilute it with inferior technologies would save millions of lives, Naya interrupted, her voice firm. I understand your concerns, Elder. But look at these readings. She highlighted specific data points. The crystal formations are dying. This isn't about tradition anymore, it's about survival. Queen Selenith, who had remained silent until now, finally spoke. You were right, daughter. We were too proud, too rigid in our thinking. She turned to address the council. I move that we implement Naya's solutions immediately, beginning with critical systems. The debate raged for hours. Marcus watched as Naya defended her research against every challenge, her responses measured and precise. She wasn't just proving her theories, she was demonstrating a kind of leadership that transcended traditional Thessalian values. Finally, High Elder Vorash called for a vote. The result was close, but clear: the hybrid system would be implemented. More surprisingly, the council voted to reinstate Naya's royal status, acknowledging that her defect had led to innovations that could save their civilization. As the chamber cleared, Naya found herself facing her mother. The queen's expression held years of regret. I should have defended you, Selenith said softly. Should have seen that different didn't mean lesser. We can't change the past, Naya replied, her secondary gills fluttering with emotion. But we can build a better future. The implementation began immediately. Teams of human and Thessalian engineers worked side by side, installing hybrid power systems across the empire. Marcus coordinated the effort, ensuring that both species learned from each other's strengths. In quiet moments between the endless meetings and installations, Naya and Marcus found time to reflect on how far they'd come. You know, Marcus said one evening, looking out over the capital city, some might say this crisis was the best thing that could have happened to your people. Naya raised an eyebrow ridge. Because it forced them to change. Because it showed them that strength comes in many forms. That progress often requires us to question our most basic assumptions. She smiled, watching as the first hybrid-powered buildings came online, their glow slightly different but no less beautiful than pure crystal energy. We still have a long way to go. Not everyone is happy about these changes. Change is never easy, Marcus agreed. But it's necessary. And you've given your people something they desperately needed: hope for a future that's different from their past. 1 year later, the Thessalian Empire celebrated the successful integration of hybrid energy systems across all major worlds. The crystal decay crisis had been averted, and in its place, a new era of innovation and cooperation had begun. The grand celebration in the capital brought together representatives from across the galaxy. Naya stood on the main balcony of the palace, now wearing the formal robes of the scientific advisor to the crown, a new position created specifically for her. Beside her, Marcus watched as ships from various species arrived for the ceremony. The latest reports from the outer colonies are excellent, Naya said, reviewing data on her tablet. The hybrid systems are performing beyond expectations. Energy efficiency is up 40%, and we've seen no signs of crystal degradation in the new configurations. And more importantly, Marcus added with a smile, applications for the new engineering academy are at record levels. Seems quite a few young Thessalians are inspired by the princess who proved different could mean better. The academy had been Naya's idea, a place where Thessalians with various abilities could study both traditional and alternative technologies. It represented a fundamental shift in how her people viewed capability and worth. High Elder Vorash approached them, his movements more measured than they had been a year ago. The council has reviewed your proposal for expanding the hybrid system to personal technology. It has been approved unanimously. Naya's secondary gills fluttered in surprise. Unanimously? Even Elder Drixus agreed. Indeed. Your success has been persuasive. Vorash paused, his tentacles moving in a gesture of respect. You have taught us much, Naya. Not just about technology, but about the danger of allowing tradition to blind us to progress. As the celebration continued, Queen Selenith addressed the gathered crowd. She spoke of change, of growth, and of the strength found in diversity. But most importantly, she announced a new era of cooperation between species, with the Thessalian Empire taking a leading role in promoting technological and cultural exchange. Later that evening, Naya and Marcus stood in the palace gardens, watching the three suns set in sequence. The hybrid-powered lights of the city created a new kind of beauty, one that blended the best of both worlds. So, Marcus said, what's next for the princess who revolutionized an empire? Naya smiled, her scales reflecting the changing light. There's still so much to do. The hybrid systems are just the beginning. I've been working on theories about integrating different energy types, ways to make technology more accessible to all species. She turned to face him. The Terran Diplomatic Corps might need to extend your assignment here. I think that can be arranged, Marcus replied with a grin. After all, we make a pretty good team. Above them, ships from dozens of worlds moved through the darkening sky, their lights creating patterns against the stars. Each represented a potential partnership, a new opportunity for growth and understanding. The rigid, crystal-pure society that had once exiled Naya was transforming into something more flexible, more inclusive, and ultimately, more resilient. You know what the best part is? Naya said, watching a group of young Thessalians demonstrating hybrid technology to visiting delegates. These children will grow up knowing that being different isn't a flaw, it's an opportunity. That strength comes in many forms, and progress requires all of them. As night fell completely, the capital city glowed with both crystal and hybrid light, a testament to the power of change and the importance of seeing beyond traditional limitations. The empire that had once defined itself by purity had discovered that its greatest strength lay in diversity, in the willingness to adapt and grow. The story of the defective princess who saved her people would be told for generations, not as a tale of redemption, but as a reminder that sometimes the greatest innovations come from those who see the world differently. And in the growing partnership between humans and Thessalians, both species had learned valuable lessons about judgment, acceptance, and the true meaning of progress. To the future, Marcus said softly, raising a glass in the traditional human gesture of celebration. To all possible futures, Naya corrected, joining in the toast. And to those brave enough to imagine them.